You're watching PM Agenda. Welcome back to the program, and let's get to a new segment here on the program that I'm very much looking forward to each week. We're going to take a look at what's going on online. A busy election year, of course, and a lot of it will be playing out in social media, not just MPs and candidates, but you, the voters, the viewers, the people who are going to decide this election, and get involved online as well. Let's welcome our panel this afternoon. Sarah Wilson, a journalist and blogger. The blog is sarahwilson.com.au if you haven't seen it already. John Bergen is Sky News' very own social media editor, and great to get you up on the desk finally. Everyone who is online would know your hashtag as well. We should probably put that on the screen just in case people haven't seen it. And Kate Carruthers, the co-founder of Moore's Cloud. Great to have you all here. I want to get through some of today's news and see how that's been playing out online in particular. Sarah, the arrest of Craig Thompson. A lot of frenetic activity online, I'm sure, with journalists tweeting what they knew and as developments unfolded. But how did you see things online? Were people surprised?
It's only been online for a couple of hours, of course. I think what I find interesting is a lot of, and it goes back to what we were just talking about off screen, and this is, Twitter very much answers questions that I actually immediately thought, well, what impact is this going to have, obviously, on the election? Is he going to be
forced out of Parliament, all of that?
That's right.
Yeah.
And fairly quickly, everybody was asking those questions on Twitter, and fairly quickly we're getting answers.
And where are the answers coming from? Are they journalists? Are they
Yes, well, a
combination
of people. Journalists in the gallery who obviously know this stuff inside and out because they're obsessed by process and detail and glassware.
God love
and but also, I guess there's this other sort of subculture of people that exist on social media who I find really fascinating. I think we're going to hear more and more of them in the next 8 months. And I hope we do, because the people who are obsessed by the detail of some of this policy stuff and the intricacies of stuff, these are people who actually follow a piece of minutiae in politics to the nth degree. So it's those kind of people who are coming up with the answers, I find. Yeah,
and there's a lot of people that I certainly see online who are former staffers at both sides of politics, and they know this stuff, a lot of stuff backwards. They're obsessed by politics. They're junkies like me, I suppose, but they're a bit freer to comment now that they're out of the building, out of working as a staffer. Kate, how have you seen things on the Craig Thompson thing in particular today? Were people shocked at the arrest, or was there much commentary as well as the Q&A on information?
I don't think anyone was shocked by it. There was a lot of commentary that I saw that was surprised at the leaking of it, so that the media were there camped out ready to film it.
And people didn't like that, or were just intrigued by it?
Well, on the Ozpol hashtag, the camps are very, very polarised. So some people are for it and want to smash him and take him down, and others think that he's innocent until proven guilty. So we have to...
I think it's got a lot to do with the people that you follow, but at least my followers that I was monitoring were very, very suspicious and distrustful of the fact that the media were camped outside both his office and his home from 7 a.m. onwards.
This is hardly the first time this has happened.
That's right.
Any big high-profile case,
yep.
You know, the cameras are suddenly there to capture the police raiding the premises.
Yep, that's right.
But this is a particularly interesting story.
It's a particular sort of push-button issue, and well, a lot of people were sort of tweeting about, oh, how is it that the media know about it from 7 o'clock in the morning, but Craig Thompson was only aware from it from 1 o'clock onwards. Stephen Spencer had a bit of a sort of a zinger of a tweet which sort of resonated through the Twitter sphere, which was, I'll have it here in front of me, delighted by policy of New South Wales Police inviting cameras along to raids. Any idea when it will be extended to people other than Craig Thompson?
So, of course, last time there was the same media circus, you know,
precisely right. But in terms of, Kate just touched upon the Ozpol hashtag. Now, it's not, if for you, those out there that are unacquainted with it, it's not for the faint-hearted. There's a lot of people that are rusted on zealots. There are a lot of people that won't change their topic and won't change their mind. But basically, a lot of people divided quite evenly along whether or not he's basically getting his just desserts, whether or not it might call for a by-election, and what the repercussions of sort of his arrest will be now.
Let's have a look then at the other big news this week and yesterday's announcement from the Prime Minister of the election date, which took everyone by surprise, but it actually first appeared before it came out of her mouth on Twitter.
Yeah, that's right, about 45 minutes earlier, I think.
It was Simon Benson, in fact, from the Daily Telegraph.
He seems to have quite an in.
He's got some good stuff this week.
He does. Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's I think everybody's almost kind of miffed that things happen that way, but we can't be that surprised. It's just that things move faster. There's always journalists that have the, the direct line to inside cabinet ministers. It's always going to happen.
Now they all have a shared platform where they can put that information.
That's right, and we've just got to deal with it.
What
really.
about the news itself, Kate? How did people react online to the unusual decision to call the election this far out?
Well, I found it fascinating because I'd been off air and I came back about 3 p.m. and went, oh my God, what's gone on?
Something's gone nuts online.
Something's gone crazy, and trawled back through it and realised what had happened, and it's like, oh, this is pretty interesting. What an interesting tactic. And the Twitter sentiment, because I was reading it back and getting it as history, not live as you do when you're watching. It was really interesting to see how surprised people were by it, and how people were either seeing it as a masterstroke or complete idiocy.
So it does really, the reaction breaks along political lines, regardless of whether it's online or people listening?
Not really, no. There's some things that actually break on gender lines as well, and the growth of the Destroy the Joint movement, thanks to Alan Jones and fellow travellers, has been really interesting to watch women mobilising online, especially on Twitter and Facebook.
Well, they feel more empowered or comfortable reacting and voicing.
I think they're just finding a voice.
Yeah.
I was particularly, on the subject of sort of Benson's story, I was particularly interested to see how that sort of news percolated through sort of the Twitter sphere, because there were people that follow him that were actually aware of the breaking news, and then there were those that weren't. And as you saw people live tweeting the actual event, they were more preoccupied with Julia Gillard's sort of hipster glasses to begin with. They thought, oh, this is just going to be another humdrum National Press Club appearance.
So there's a lot of chat about how she looked?
A lot of chatter about how she looks. There seems to be quite a lot of that. There were a lot of people who were saying, oh, it's good that she's gone for sort of the geek chic look. I, for one, think the glasses look wonderful. But then there was this sort of niggling fact about an election that sort of got in the way, and that really sort of went like a bolt of electricity through Twitter. And a lot of people were saying, both journalists and just the voting public, if you want to call that, on Twitter, saying, look, this is a really good strategy. Basically, a lot of people believing that this long-term strategy means that it's the power of an incumbent government to wear out sort of a potentially fragile political opponent. More opportunities for Tony Abbott to possibly put his foot in his mouth.
Because I think that the press coverage today was, different views on it, but largely she's given away too much, she's gambled too much. It's a pretty crazy decision.
That's right.
A different take to
a lot of people were saying that yesterday, Graham Morris and Bruce Hawker broadly agreed that the one thing that they had, that was a piece of political ammunition to their advantage that they didn't give to the opposition, was the date of the election. She had that up her sleeve, they chose to play it. The tactic everyone seems to conclude is that, well, now the onus is on them to start to release policies and have them fully costed. They can't play that traditional small target approach. But he's poured cold water on that, Tony Abbott, today, saying no, that's not going to happen. And a lot of people on social media criticising the fact that he's not going to do that. Also today, his National Press Club appearance, broad sort of sentiments and sort of values, and sort of it being a referendum on truth without any sort of real concrete policy announcements, apart from the one, obviously, about the leaked emails that forced his hand.
And also get stuck into looking at which MPs are good and bad at Twitter in particular, but social media more broadly. We do have to get to a break, though. Our viewers in New Zealand, New Zealand news is next for you, but stay with us here in Australia. PM Agenda continues. This social media discussion, looking ahead at the election year, Sarah, how do you see social media being used in this campaign? Because, it was said by some, I'm not looking at you, John, that last election would be the election of social media. Yeah. Is this one going to be?
Well, I've read of some estimates saying that both parties will be spending about a quarter of their campaign funding on social media, which extends to advertising.
That's a stunning figure.
I read that somewhere on the Twitter sphere today, so who knows if it's
be
true.
Right.
But yeah, look, I think.
How do you spend money on social media, though? Just it's probably an obvious answer.
Maybe some courses, giving ministers some lessons on how to not land in trouble.
What to tweet and what not to tweet.
Yeah, that's right. I think. Look, I think it will be in many respects, and I think. We said this last election, and certainly Obama managed to sort of, use social media very, very heavily and very successfully. But I think here, what I'm hoping we'll see is that some of these, these policy political nerds that exist out there who focus on one particular area of politics, you know, and go after it and go after it. I think we're going to see some more in-depth discussion. You know, there's a lot of criticism that it's going to be all about personality and not about policy. I actually think there's hope that that social media can actually bring us more policy via some of these in-depth reads that we can connect to. And, you know, Kate, you mentioned that you just, you know, looked up something on hashtag earlier, you know, to sort of scroll down and find out what was happening, you know, with the election announcement. You know, that's how we can actually use social media. You can look at the hashtag.
If you want to find out about superannuation and the debate that's going to happen there,
you can go as deep or as shallow as you want.
You can put hashtag superannuation and hopefully find out a bit of policy. Is social media going to be more than just, gee, those glasses look good? Is it going to be a serious policy forum?
We look at social media as not just, say, Twitter and Facebook, but as the broader blogosphere, where people are doing in-depth analysis and taking quite substantial amounts of time to create really good quality analysis. And they're quite well-educated people, quite often former staffers from one or the other of the political parties, and that kind of analysis is actually taking a place of the kind of analysis we used to find in better funded days in the mainstream media.
Because this election, I mean, we've seen in the last 3 years, 4 years, you know, a whole heap of cutbacks in mainstream media. So, and the people that have left are, in fact, the senior journalists. The ones that mainstream media have always said, well, you know, Twitter has all these kind of wannabes out there sharing incorrect information. We've got senior journalists writing in-depth critical opinion. Well, a lot of those have actually left now. They're now online.
And where are they? One of the interesting phenomena I've seen is that the Hoopla, which is Wendy Harmer's online media organisation, has gotten a whole lot of senior female journalists and is churning out really good quality stuff
and
now.
paying them.
Well, and that's a big thing because, you know, it doesn't always happen online that the stuff that you do gets paid for. John, when we look at how MPs and candidates, but MPs in particular, are going to use the whole online world. Interesting, Tony Windsor, the independent MP from Bush, finally got on board with Twitter yesterday. He says he doesn't want to...
Welcome to the fold.
Yes, he doesn't want to be outside the national debate, which is going on.
And rightly so.
Online.
And rightly so.
But, you know, there are MPs who use Twitter well, and there are MPs who don't.
Not so well. There's been a few what we call sort of embarrassing gaffes in the history of Australian politics online. I would agree broadly with Kate's sentiment that Twitter and basically any social media platform is a wonderful sort of extension of the body politic because it can put people in touch with information when done right. When done wrong, it can be awful. It can be a dog's breakfast. And we recall that not too long ago when Twitter was really sort of appearing on Australian shores and politicians were getting a grasp of it, we indulged in a Twitter debate for the New South Wales state election. Now, that was largely criticised, although I think it was a good idea and it showed some vision. Basically an opportunity for people to throw sort of bumper stickers at one another for the space of 30 minutes, a bit like herding cats. I felt very sorry for the journalist in charge of it at the time, even though I applaud him for giving it a red hot go. Now I think we've grown up a little bit. I think now it's really important for politicians to be on Twitter. I think it's really important for politicians to authentically engage, and that actually means
you know, they can't. We saw Andrew Laming, it was this week, I think, wasn't it?
Right.
A Liberal MP with a bit of a thought bubble tweet and a cute one-liner about, well, there's Tony Abbott doing his bit up in Queensland when the floods were about to hit or were hitting. Where's the PM?
That's right.
Turned out she was with the bushfire.
He did have to
Victoria.
Sort of back down and apologise.
Hashtag.
Well, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Or possibly a search engine, but we'll see. But
and then there's also the darned autocorrect. I found out. I think it was yesterday or the day before. My tweet about Trish Crossan came out with an A instead of an I on her first name.
They're the sort of things that people will latch on to. If they want to accuse journalists of being sort of capable of sort of gotcha sort of journalism, well, people are as well on Twitter, and that will sort of like reverberate through Twitter as well.
Can MPs learn this stuff? Is there a class they can go to?
Yeah.
Or is it you've got to learn on the job, basically?
Well, there's two things. You can learn the principles, but it's like anything you learn by doing, and it has a cultural of its own, Twitter, and it's quite different to other social media. So really it's worthwhile people getting on there, lurking, watching, understanding the social mores of the culture, and then participating, dipping your toe in.
It's about entering the fray. A lot of people who talk about Twitter and they don't understand it, they open a Twitter account and put out a few missives and pictures of them and their cat or whatever. But it is about a conversation. I know that Craig Emerson gets a hard time
He's
for being an
extraordinary.
addict.
I reckon he's wound it down a bit this year.
Yeah, it's a crook look when you're tweeting things at 1 in the morning, you know. It's just a crook look. But I think it's 40 tweets a day he averages.
Incredible.
However, to his credit, I think he goes too far, but to his credit, he's actually doing what Twitter's about, and that is engaging in a conversation.
He takes on his critics, has a respectful argument.
He's engaging. A lot of MPs out there, they put out press, mini press releases, and it's like we're not going to follow it. I think Malcolm Turnbull's a really good example because, and it's interesting because the position he's in, he can't get out there and talk too often, but what he can do is build his own brand on Twitter. And I would say, really, no more than a quarter, even less of his tweets are political.
Yeah, that's right.
Most of them are about, his dog or sort of some commentary on other sort of social happenings, affecting his, his electorate, but also building up a picture of him as the everyday man.
With him, and for MPs though, and I know it's the case for journalists as well. You tweet something, you're going to cop a lot of abuse from one side of politics or the other. You do just need to be prepared to roll with that, don't you? And
a thick skin and a polite mind, I think, is the best way. Nothing will sort of aggrieve your opponents more by smiling at them and being polite, and I think a lot of politicians would probably do well to remember that. As I said earlier, not to sound like a broken record, it's just about authentically engaging. If people just want to talk trash to you, then, well, you're not really going to get much sort of protein out of that sort of exchange, so why engage in it? Just agree to disagree and walk away.
That's what the block button's for anyway. If
That's
people
very
are
true
being
too.
Truly offensive to you, even if you're a
can block
politician,
them.
you should just block them.
Well, we'll no doubt be exploring a lot of what's happening online through the course of the next 7 or so months. We'll have to wrap it up there, but Kate Carruthers, Sarah Wilson, John Bergen, thanks so much for joining us. Look forward to talking more in the months ahead. We're going to take another quick break, then back with more. Stay with us.